Welcome to Speakeasy on Much More Music. You know, at 11 years old, he traded his Whammo slingshot and some of his mom's records for a stack of Elvis and Little Richard singles, thus embracing rock and roll with a grip so tight he never let go. After 30 years of playing and 23 years of ongoing commercial success, Tom Petty still represents all that is good, gritty, and grand about rock and roll. How's that for an opening?
That's quite an introduction to live up to.
You did embrace rock and roll about 11 years old. That was what you wanted to do.
I did. I was just overwhelmed by it. I didn't know I wanted to do it. I just wanted to listen to it. You know, I listened for several years before I picked up an instrument. But when I was bitten by the bug, everything else went out the window, you know. Sports and everything. My parents were kind of concerned because I just played records all day.
Your dad broke him at one point, didn't he?
He did.
That's it, Tom?
That's it. Get these posters off the wall, you know.
Oh, well, I'm glad it didn't deter you.
We've worked that out. He's really happy I went on with it now.
Didn't you promise him that if he just got off your back and let you play rock and roll, you'd be a millionaire by the time you were 35?
I've read that. I think I probably did, yeah. He says I did. Every Cadillac I give him, he's really glad that I stayed in the business.
You had a brand new record, Echo.
Yes.
And you introduced it with a really grand style by being the house band at the Fillmore.
Yeah, we played the Fillmore. Well, we did 2 stands there, one of 20 nights. That was really amazing. And then we came back when we'd finished the album and did a week there. And we've become the house band. And it's one of our favorite places to play. It really spoiled us because, you know, when the tour started, we really had to readjust our I don't know, our thrust, you know, because suddenly we're back in a big place with, you know, lots of people, and it's a different sort of show you do, you know. But yeah, the Fillmore is a wonderful place.
Legendary, absolutely.
Oh, and it sounds so good.
Are the acoustics that great?
They're really excellent.
Why?
I don't know. It's just something about the building and maybe the way they have big, thick velvet drapes on one side and behind the stage. And I don't know, the air just feels like a lot of music's been played in there.
Some kind of etheric imprint.
Yeah, and the audience comes in with an understanding of, you know, we're the Fillmore audience, you know, we're gonna be really good.
You've always labored, or purportedly labored, over your lyrics, and I was listening to Echo, and I thought that there was kind of a theme of endings and beginnings. Beautiful beginnings and some endings.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I think if you listen to it casually, you might think it's a little more depressing than it is, because it gets dark at times, but it's more about how you survive that and begin again, you know. So yeah, that's a pretty good summation, I think, endings and beginnings.
People resist change, and I mean, I think it's just kind of the way we are.
Yeah, until it just hits you over the head, you resist it.
Have things changed for you?
Well, they've changed a lot in the last few years because I've been divorced and gone back to work. I'd stopped working for 2 years, I think. So I'm back with the Heartbreakers, making records and touring, and I'm happy as a clam now. Because it's what you know, it's where I feel most comfortable, really.
That's kind of like an old shoe, isn't it?
It is. They're an old shoe.
Yeah, Heartbreakers, my old shoe. I love to hear
My
that.
old boot.
Or a good glove.
It's great, you know. They're such a great rock and roll band, and of course they're my friends all the way back to school. So it's like my family, you know.
I was thinking about the 3 of you. That would be Mike Campbell, yourself, and Ben Montech.
Yeah.
Getting in a van and driving from Gainesville, Florida to LA to make it.
Mm-hmm.
To think then, Nixon was the president, the Vietnam War was on, that you'd still be making music.
Isn't that amazing?
I think it's totally amazing. I think it's kind of unprecedented.
You know, I mean, I think when we started out, when we made our first record, I remember saying, you know, if we really do great, we could get 5 years out of this, you know. And it's just gone on and on further. I mean, when we started this, you know, I'm 48 now. There weren't people that age making rock and roll records, you know. So it wasn't even a thought at the time, you know. You just thought by then you'd be in some other line of work. But I'm really grateful to the people that have, you know, bought the records and come to the shows and been so loyal to us. Because it's a great gift, really. And you said that about mixing. I remember being in one of the first sessions, you know, real sessions that I'd ever been in, and stopping to watch him resign and end the war. And it was a great time. There was a feeling of change in the air, like the music was going to change, and sure as hell did in a couple of years. I used to think it was a great curse to have my voice, you know.
Really?
Yeah, and then I realized later on it was quite a blessing, because I didn't sound like everyone else. And there's something about my voice that stuck out that people remembered. So maybe it's a blessing in a way. But, you know, I always wanted to sound like Madonna. You know, I can't do it. I love Madonna's music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She keeps growing.
I think she's fantastic.
Ray of Light is pretty amazing.
Amazing.
Would you ever work with somebody like William Orbit, like she did? Go into that whole arena?
I love what she did with him. I don't know if it would work in my world, but I think she's making really good music right now.
Do you think people like Madonna and Cher and even yourself have changed the concept of when it's over? Is there
Maybe so. I mean,
yeah.
If you keep coming up with things, you know, I think certainly the Rolling Stones had a big effect on the when it's over aspect. We always sort of look to them because they're a little older than us, and we go, well, they're still doing it. You have to admire people that survive in this business, because it's a hard thing to do at times, you know. But the best thing, you know, I've never really thought of myself as having a career or anything. I think if you're thinking about your career, you don't have one, you know, because when you do, you're too busy to think about it.
I think Madonna thought about her career.
No, I think she thought about it in some terms, but you can't manipulate art, you know. It's if this is art, I mean, you just have to keep doing quality work. So I think the key to it is to entertain yourself, you know. I don't know what Madonna's theory on it is, but I would think if she kept herself interested and entertained, she would keep growing, you know, and keep going in a way that we would all be entertained. But it's not really a career, you know. I mean, we'd do the same thing if we weren't getting any money, or, you know, that's what's so funny about it, is we don't know how to do anything else. You know, we've done this since we were really young. I couldn't hold down a job if I had to, you know? So all I'd be doing is the same thing. So it's nice that people, you know, pump it up to that stage of, you know, ooh, it's a career. But really, we thought, you know, in the late 60s, early, you know, like when we were going to start, we thought it was abandoning any sense of career, you know.
Yeah. You were taking the alternative route.
Yeah, we didn't go to school. We were probably going to screw up somewhere down the road. So it's just a series of nice accidents, you know.
For your fans, too.
Yeah, I hope so.
We're going to talk about those early days when we come back with Tom Petty on Speakeasy.
And I think it's like most club scenes. It's like, you know, the English club scene in New York, where you have you know, 200 bands and 150 stink, and You know, 20 show promise, and 5 are almost good, and 5 are really good. And the record companies sign all 200. Right. You know, anybody that can carry a guitar is getting signed in L.A.
Are you serious? Is that true?
Oh yeah, if you want to make, I mean, if money's falling off trees in L.A., man, just go to L.A. They'll sign you right up. Just get your guitar, get the right haircut, go down the street.
So isn't there that desperate kind of
Tell
feeling?
them I sent you.
Hi, welcome back to Speakeasy and our conversation with Tom Petty. So the early days, you're in Hollywood now, you're in Los Angeles, and living in not so great a hotel.
No.
And Leon Russell is suddenly interested in writing with you, which means you can move into his mansion, you can work with him, and you can get access to how the big boys do it, like George Harrison, like Brian Wilson. What did you learn rubbing shoulders with those guys?
You know, I was really in awe of all of them. I was just a young kid and new in town, and it was fantastic to watch them all work. You know, I think what they shared in common, all these, you know, mega stars that were coming through that I admired so much, was just they had such a passion for what they were doing, and such a focus, you know, and it was just fantastic, you know. And everybody, I learned right then too, everybody has a different way of getting where they want to go, you know. Mm-hmm. So I just tried to observe and learn as much as I could. What? I don't know, you know.
Did they mentor you? Did they take you under their wing, or were you just like the kid, new kid on the block, he's in the room, he's there?
They were pretty nice to me, really.
Yeah?
You know, I don't think anybody ever asked my advice, really, because I was a rookie, you know. But they were certainly nice to me, and it made me feel like I was okay to be there. And George Harrison, you know, and Ringo, that was when I first met them, and, you know, we've remained friends for a long time now, I guess, you know. So I'm grateful to Leon for that. Though I don't even know if he knew what he was doing, if he knew the effect it was having on me, but it was a great experience.
Getting back to what it's like, or what it was like for you, then you have a debut record with you and the Heartbreakers, and you're not really picking up a lot of steam in America until you go to England, and everything changes because you have a hit.
Isn't that something? Like,
anything,
you know,
that's rock and
one
roll.
little hit will do it, you know. Yeah, that was, well, it's almost like fantasy land, you know. You go there and tour this place that no date is more than an hour apart, you know.
Right.
So it was a wonderful time. Wonderful time. Music was changing, and we were so excited by it all. It was wonderful.
Then, because of that, you got a buzz back in America. And by the time you got back to America, you had another hit on your hands.
Well, when we first went back to America, you know, it's take out the trash, you know. You're no star around here. But we got a little buzz going down at the Whiskey A Go-Go, and we started to play there, and things started to happen for us, you know. Breakdown came out on the radio almost a year after it had been out, and was a hit, and then you realize what a big place North America is, because the dates aren't an hour apart.
So Damn the Torpedoes then was full steam ahead. Damn the Torpedoes, big album, big change.
Yeah, that really changed things. You know, like, what if you had a dream and it came true? Imagine that, you know? So that's what that was like. I was like, well, damn, it happened. And then you're faced with dealing with, you know, what if you had a dream and it came true, and then it's all right in your lap and you've got to deal with it.
That can be discombobulating, because you're not striving and reaching anymore. It's kind of coming to you.
Well, it's coming to you in a sense, but you've got to keep striving and reaching or it won't continue. Especially if you're the songwriter, you know, it's all great, but it's only as good as the next song you write, you know? You've got to keep coming up with more songs. So I think some members of the group had a wilder time in that period than I did, because I was really at the piano or with the guitar sort of stressing about, oh, I've got to get 12 more songs together, you know, so we can go in and make another album. And then, boy, now everyone's looking and you feel a little more self-conscious about it, like, oh, it's got to be good. So it's bittersweet, you know.
You were part of that early MTV, everything has changed, radio's different, TV's on the scene, making music happen. How did you feel about being part of that first wave of video bands? Because you've certainly done signature videos that have gotten a lot of attention. How did you feel about it?
It was funny because, of all places, Los Angeles didn't get MTV right away. They didn't have it on the cable company out there.
That sounds ludicrous.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, I think it was on for a couple of years before, so we'd never seen it. And we'd always done what we call promo clips, where you'd lip sync your song on film and it'd be sent out to usually everywhere you couldn't get to or you didn't want to get, you know, if there'd be like shows you didn't want to go on, and you'd send them a tape and they'd sort of act like you were on the program, but really it was just a film of you doing your song. So we got fed up with that, and we thought it'd be so great to do one where we didn't sing at all, you know. And so we went out to the desert and we made this one for You Got Lucky. And I think it was probably the first kind of narrative video. And we, you know, it got sent to MTV and was a huge success, and we'd be in airports, and it was where we first noticed that we were being recognized by people that weren't young. You know, like, it was normal to have teenagers recognize you, but you never saw somebody 50 who knew who you were. Now suddenly people are going, yeah, I saw you on that motorbike, you know, it's really good, you know, and where did you see it? MTV. And we used to say, what the hell is MTV? That was fun. I took that as like, well, let's see what else we can do, you know, if we're gonna make another little movie, let's make it even stranger than the one before, you know. So, yeah, we got in on the video thing, and suddenly that was kind of what was going on. And I think that went on for some time, you know.
There's so much more to talk about, and we're going to talk about it, but we got to take a break. Stick with us on Speakeasy in our conversation with Tom Petty. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Speakeasy and our conversation with Tom Petty. So we're talking about Damn the Torpedoes, and your producer Jimmy, rhymes with ice cream, Iovine. Yeah. And it was a new association, it was a good association, but it wasn't necessarily an easy association with some of the songs that you were doing. I think Rebel was a tough one to record, wasn't it?
Or it was Refugee.
Oh, Refugee, right.
Refugee was
Rebel
very
was
difficult, yeah. I had these songs, I met Jimmy Iovine sight unseen. I called him. He had done this Patti Smith record, and I loved the sound of the drums on the record, and I called him, and turned out he was a big fan, and he came out, and he, you know, we were about the same age, and we started palling around Hollywood. We had a great time, and we had this song, Refugee, that Jimmy was really keen on. And we must have recorded it a couple 100 times. I mean, wow. Over and over. It was just, it got where it wasn't a day of it. anymore. It was just whatever you were doing, you had a shot at Refugee every day until Jimmy got the one that he thought was great. I'd given up on it. I'd just gone, you know, I can't tell anymore. But I think he was right, because he got a really great record of it that really holds up all these years later. He was a very determined young man. He was very driven.
Well, he was palling around with another determined young man.
We both were, you know. We were very driven. And I just spoke to him on the phone the other day. We really were kind of nuts. We worked really hard on that record. See, I introduced Dave Stewart to Jimmy in a way because he was saying, you know, he was doing another record and he needed some songs for the artist he was working on. He said, give me a song. I said, no, I give you too many songs. And I'm not going to give you any songs. And he said, well, who writes great songs? I said, there's this guy in England. You know, I heard this record, and I think like he wrote a lot of good songs on this record. And he went and found the Arithmetics, and and Dave Stewart came to LA to work with Jimmy, and we met, and we became friends and started to collaborate.
This sounds just too weird, but I guess I get this from the horse's mouth, as they say. You actually met Jeff Lynne, ex-ELO leader, at a traffic light?
Well...
And invited him over and wrote Free Falling right away?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, I had met him about 2 weeks earlier when I was in England playing with Bob Dylan. We were in London for a week, and Jeff Lynne and George Harrison would come over to the shows almost every day and hang out. And that's where we met. And so we had a really pretty good time hanging around the shows. And then a few weeks later, the tour was over. I was back in LA, and I was driving down to the store, actually listening to the record they had given me. They'd given me a cassette of the George Harrison album they'd just done. And I was thinking, you know, I love the sound of this thing. And I looked to my left, and there's Jeff Lynne. And so I pulled him over and told him how much I liked the record, and then he came over to my house and, well, why don't we try writing one, you know? And we wrote Free Falling and several others, you know? You know, we just went on this mad tear because I thought Jeff was going back to England in a week, and I kept talking him out of it to stay and do one more track, and we wound up doing the first solo record I did, Full Moon Fever. And, you know, he's become another great friend and such a talented guy. And he's so very talented. And that was just, you know, that was a great time.
So this is laying the groundwork, because years ago you'd already toured with Dylan as his backup band and played with him, and you co-wrote Jammin' Me with him. Yeah. So you know Dylan, you know Harrison, you know Jeff Lynne, and you know certainly about the other member.
And we all loved Roy, but Jeff really, really, you know, was into Roy Orbison. So he went to the trouble of finding Roy Orbison and talking him into doing a record. And so the day I met Roy, we wrote that song, You Got It, Anything You Want, you know. And I was just kind of in awe of him, you know. And I couldn't believe we were writing a song and everything. And it was soon after that the idea, I think Jeff and George had always had the idea of the Traveling Wilburys, but really didn't know who to have in it. But we were all kind of in that circle socially, if you can believe that. I mean, we were really just hanging out. And we really, really liked each other's company, and it just became a group. And then, of course, you know, Roy died at the, you know, sort of pinnacle of our success. And ever since, there's been this great debate about who would replace Roy. But I don't think anyone ever would, you know. It was more about your friends and who you got along with. You know, Roy happened to be a great singer, you know. But we loved him. We loved his sense of humor, and we loved having him around. So I don't know, that was just such a great time. It was one of those things that could never have been planned or put together. You know, we really did love each other, and we loved what we were doing, and I think it shows in that music. It was just such a very happy time for me. It was a real fresh experience for me, and I've learned a lot doing it. And maybe, you know, I don't know what I learned other than a diminished chord. But, you know.
You bastard.
You guys, because you were all songwriters, when you got together, you didn't labor over songs for a long time. I mean, you worked...
It wasn't time.
Fast track.
No, there wasn't time. You know, you'd look around the room and go, how long is this going to last? Could end tonight.
Right.
You know?
Did that change the way you approached your own songwriting later?
Maybe a little. It was a great course in songwriting to have all those writers there. And, you know, George Harrison was just fearless. I mean, let's do another one, you know, and what? You know, well, this, and make something out of this. Oh, okay. And we'd have some music together, and we'd have dinner, and then, well, Bob, what do you think? What should we call this one? You know? Rattled. Rattled, okay. And then we would actually just shout lines out, and there'd be, no! And then suddenly the right line would come out, yes! You know, and we'd write it down. So I think it made me, I got where I was really unashamed to shout out anything, you know, that I thought, you know, you'd think off the top of your head. But I was comfortable enough with those people that I wasn't embarrassed by it, you know.
You said it was all about the joy of it, and that for you, it put joy back into the making of music.
It really did. I mean, I'd been through some bad experiences right before that. And it really kind of made me optimistic again. I wanted to make happy music.
It's a great legacy for Roy, too, to be going out that way with the support of the greatest players around. You were the young kid on the block with them.
Yeah, imagine that. It was, you know, and I'm glad we always hugged him every day. And we just never shut up about how much we loved him and how great he was, you know. I once said, Roy, you know, you're probably the best singer in the world, you know. And he said, probably.
I guess if you're that good, you don't have to be modest.
No.
Well, we've got a little more time and a lot more to talk about, so you stay with us. We're going to be back on Speakeasy and our wonderful conversation with Tom Petty.
Hi, this is Ricky Martin.
Oh, that would be Tom Petty. This would be Speakeasy, and that's his impression of Ricky Martin. Ed Burns, you said, I'm not interested. I'm not going to do it. He
Go
sent
away,
you, go
leave me
away.
alone.
He sent you his film anyway, and you looked at it because you had nothing else to do, and then you went, you know, maybe I would be interested in scoring this film.
I thought it was really good, and I needed to do something, you know. I was just divorced, a single guy living on his own with nothing to do, which is just a bad idea.
It feels very serious, you know? And I think at this point in the film, you know...
Okay, what if we do this? What if we take a gut string? That'll be the first melody. they'll come in on the second progression with you, right? But we do the first progression, gut string acoustic. I scored the film and wrote them. First, it's we need one song, you know. And so I wrote him 3 songs to choose from, and he wanted all 3 songs. And then they wanted to put them out on an album with, you know how they do, where they just rake people in and put all these groups on. And they wanted me to call these groups and ask them. As musical director, it became my job, right? And then I realized, like, you know, nobody's going to send me anything really good because they're keeping it for their album, you know? And I just thought, well, let me just finish it. And I'll make it my own album, you know? And so I had quite a few songs left over from Wildflowers. And Ed Burns placed a good deal of them in the film here and there. And so, voila, we had an album in a couple of months.
Then in 1997, you appeared on screen, Kevin Costner's film.
Oh, you know about that.
Yeah. You caught the acting bug. Was it a temporary flu, or?
It was still just part of, I need something to do. You know, the band wasn't working, and I was having really a lot of trouble with day-to-day life. I didn't know what to do. Things weren't organized, you know. So Kevin Costner asked me, you know, to do this part in this sort of post-apocalyptic film he had. And I thought, well, this has got to be interesting. And so I went up, way up in the middle of nowhere, you know, kind of in the state of Washington, almost on the border of Canada, like just up on a mountain somewhere. And I was up there for a few weeks. It was cold in July, you know.
Yeah.
We'd wear like 2 down coats, you know. So I guess the big realization about acting was I got there and you know, you had to work really hard. Like, they take this really seriously, and Kevin was directing, and he really leaned on me to come across, you know. So I think I learned a bit about it. I really never had any desire to be an actor, but it's a nice sideline, you know. It's a nice thing to do if you've got the time, and but I don't think I'd ever be that great at it because I haven't had the time to study it, you know. But I you know, I kind of mumbled my way through it.
With all the awards that you've won, and you've won so many, from Grammys to, you know, Video Vanguard Awards for Last Dance with Mary Jane. I wish we could talk about that. I wish we had time. Why does she open her eyes at the end of the video?
Oh, I'm not saying. I'd ruin it. Yeah, I've won Swine of the Year, you know.
Which one is the
Hall
most
of
important?
Filth.
Which one stands out for you as something that you could honestly say, yeah, I feel proud of that. That was big.
Of awards?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think when you get my age, you can have a different view at them. You know, when I was younger, I really didn't put much stock in them or pay much attention to it. And then as you get older, you kind of go, or you've been doing it a long time, you go, well, that was kind of nice, you know, that someone noticed that we've been around a while doing good work. I think the one that touched us all the most was we got a star on Hollywood Boulevard. And there was another one where we really never discussed it or said anything about it until the day we were actually there getting it. And the street was just filled with people, you know, and it felt like they were really genuinely they were fans, you know, and they were there. We weren't gonna sing or anything, and they were just there to support us. And I was kind of touched by it. I think the whole group was. And this was like an area of town that, you know, many years before we had always walked up and down the road, and, you know, you'd always looked at those stars in the boulevard, never even dreaming, you know, that, I mean, I never even had that dream that we would be, you know, sort of eternalized on the sidewalk, you know. And I think that one really meant a lot to us in some kind of strange way, just because of the day and the moment. It really felt like, wow, there's thousands of people here for no other reason than to just say, hey, good job, you know. I want to go down there and look at it some night.
Polish it up a little.
Yeah, let's get the gum off it.
Well, I actually have to let you go because you have a show to do.
Yeah.
You really do. So I want to thank you, and shall we go out in one of the new videos then?
Yes, definitely play a new video.
Okay, so shall it be Your Free Girl now?
Sure, that's a good one.
Tom Petty, thanks so much for being with us. And this is Your Free Girl Now from Tom Petty's new album, Echo.